Welcome to the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Adrienne Campbell, where we talk about real life, challenge assumptions, and explore different ways of being in the world. This week, for episode 13, I have Josh Maloney joining me to discuss a bit about his life, his time in the Army in Iraq, the healing he's found through yoga, and the awesome work he's doing in the world to help our fellow veterans. I also just wanted to give a little heads up. There is some potential triggers in this episode as we will be discussing the war in Iraq, death in combat, some trauma with dogs, suicide during police work, and things of that nature. So just a heads up, if any of these are something that you might be sensitive to, this may not be the episode for you. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Energetic Psyche weekly podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Adrienne Campbell. This week for episode 13, I have Josh Maloney joining me to discuss a bit about his life, his time in the Army, the healing he's found through yoga, and the awesome work he's doing in the world to help our fellow veterans. So I just want to share a little bit about Josh with you. Josh is a veteran of the U.S. Army who served as an Abrams Tank Crewmember and later a U.S. Army Reserve drill sergeant. As a mindful resilience for trauma recovery facilitator, Josh shares an evidence-informed, clinically tested yoga program that was developed specifically for veterans recovering from post-traumatic stress and other psychological difficulties. As a Purple Heart recipient, Josh continues to share his story of how programs like Veterans Yoga Project help veterans with post-traumatic stress. A 2021 graduate from Cape Cod Community College with a degree in environmental technologies and a certificate in coastal zone management, Josh combines his experience and education as an arborist, climber, and plant healthcare technician for Bartlett Tree Experts on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you so much for having me. Quite the honor.
You're here. Yes, I'm so glad you're here. I've had so much fun just like catching up with you before all of this. So I'm really excited about this episode. Sure. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Josh Maloney, as she said. I grew up on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, where I still live as Henry David Thoreau. That's the barred and bent arm of the North Atlantic coast. I've always really been drawn to nature, except for my Army time. Even as a kid, I was just always outside. That's what I wanted to do. I had some early childhood trauma that I really didn't figure out until a couple months ago, to be perfectly honest with you. It just kind of bubbled to the surface. And I'm feeling a lot better about all of that now, which is pretty fantastic. Nice. I went to a tech school, so I studied carpentry pretty much instead of going to school. I got to go practice and shop. And then in my senior year, I actually got to go work on a job site. So I got paid. 2 weeks I'd go to class and pretend to be a high school student, and then 2 weeks I'd go out and work in the field making money, which was really something awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was going to go into an engineering field, something carpentry related. It made sense. So I went to college, Cape Cod Community College, and boy, did I hate it. It turned out that working on carpentry all that time didn't really help me with like the school part. So I really, really struggled, and I just hated it. And it was 2008, so the market had just crashed. My family, everybody, all the income was really based on, good things. It was, the real estate, which that tanked. Cars, that tanked.
Right.
So it was a tough time. I kind of looked at my options, like, hey, the school thing is not working. I can't do carpentry forever. Like, I really don't. I don't love it. I just know that I can't do it forever. And also, like, look at the majority of the carpenters. Are they in tip-top shape? Like, a lot of them, their bodies are just, it's such a hard job. And by 18, working for a couple of years, my back was messed up, and I'm like, ow, like I can't do this for another 40 years. Like it's just asking too much. College wasn't working. I made a very impromptu decision. I'm kind of an impulsive fella. I don't really It'll probably come up a couple times. I made an impromptu decision to go talk to the recruiter. The only one that was open on New Year's Eve was the Army. Go Army.
That's how they get them.
That's how they get them. Yep, they put in the extra hours. It was
Yeah.
the only one that was open. They scooped me right up. I went to MEPS a couple weeks later.
So how old were you when you joined?
18.
Oh, okay. Okay. I also joined a little bit later. Like I had gotten out of school, did my own thing for about a year and a half. I turned 20 in boot camp. Also an impulsive decision.
How long between the decision and boot camp?
Gosh, a month and a half. Like,
yeah,
I
so
mean,
pretty much same thing with me.
I decided in 3 days and signed up. Like they had me taking my ASVAB, and as soon as they got my score, they were like, "Yep, what do you want? You want this?
Yep.
You want that? Like, we just whatever you want, you're in." Yep.
So when I went to MEPS, my first thing was like, I want a carpentry job, and they were like, we don't have any. And I was like, oh, okay. So what else? My tests were really high, so they wanted me to be EOD, which I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do that. And they had there was like an interview process to, do a confident, to get the clearances and stuff. And they started asking me if I had ever smoked pot. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, of course I smoked pot. Like I grew up in Massachusetts in the early 2000s. Like, I mean, everybody out there, including you, is, not you, but her, has probably smoked pot. So I fucking caved, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I need a different job. I was like, I'm just not a good enough liar. I gotta go. So I went back and said, what else do you have? Like, what's something else? And they said, well, we have this tanker job, and it's really great. And they showed me the video of the tank, like, going over a berm. I mean, it was just the coolest. Going over, coming down, shooting on the move. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. But I didn't have the guts to tell my parents what I had signed up to do. So I told them that I was a tank mechanic, which is a whole lot safer. Although our tank mechanics were definitely used. Any of that rhetoric that some people say that like mechanics always stay behind the lines, mechanics are always like, that's bullshit.
Well, and those lines are not always safe either. Like, let's just put that out there.
The fobs are incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And then a lot of them, like, we were a tank company when I later deployed. So we had 16 people, 16 soldiers filling 4 Humvees, which is 20 seats. So we have 6. So we're already down 4 people. So guess who we're getting? The mechanic, the logistics guys, anybody that will fill that seat.
Right. The warm body.
Just a warm body, really. Hey, sorry.
Right.
This is not what you signed up for. Like, that's not what I signed up for. I wanted to be in the big shiny tank. And I just couldn't.
Yeah.
But so I went to basic training April 8th of 2008. Yeah. And that sucked.
Does anyone ever say that basic training didn't suck? Like, I'm sure there's some lunatics out there.
I've definitely heard people that say that they liked it. And on, I'm also jaded because a lot of soldiers told me that they liked it as a drill sergeant.
Interesting.
Hey soldier, how was your experience? Oh, I loved it, drill sergeant. Like, I remember when I was a young soldier and it finally clicked that I just had, even though I was miserable and I hated everything that I was doing, and I just wanted to go lie down somewhere. Like, even though all of that, I remember it clicked, and it was like, I just have to say that I love this. That's
Yeah.
what I have to say. That's the only thing that I can do to fit into this shitty fucking group. And I remember when it clicked because I was at a training exercise in Fort Irwin, and Sergeant First Class Briggleman, we were pulling security outside of some I pretend Iraqi village essentially. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just fucking like, fuck it, I don't want to be here, like walking like that with my head down. And he sees that, and he's like, he says something, and I don't even look up. Like, I'm just like fucking disassociated. Like, I'm just like not even fucking paying attention, just daydream.
Mm-hmm.
So he threw a fucking orange at my head, fucking hit me right in the side of the head. And I felt really dumb after that because I should have seen it coming. And that was the day that I learned that I just had to pretend that it didn't suck.
Yeah.
And that got us through.
Yeah. I remember, I think for me, one of the biggest things that I hate it, feel like that I did enjoy about it is that it showed me how much further I could go than I thought I could. Because like I remember one night laying on the parade field, we were getting beat for something, as you do. And we were doing the on your belly, on your back, on your belly, on your back exercise. Yep. And I was in Cape May, New Jersey in the wintertime. So it was cold.
Oh,
at night. And I remember at one point they left us on our backs for, a full minute or something. And I was staring up at the sky, and I was like, I think this is what it feels like when you die. Like I hurt so bad everywhere. Like everything hurt so bad.
Especially the cold.
Like, I think I'm dying. I was like, oh my God. And then I didn't. And I was like, holy shit. Like,
I made it. I passed through.
I can go that far. Like to the point where like I think I'm dying and my body still responds. Like that's incredible. Like, I was just like, oh my God. Yeah, definitely changed my perspective on so many things moving forward in my life, because I'm like, it's not as bad as that, or it doesn't hurt as bad as that hurt. So,
in my work now as a tree climber, I know 100% that the vets are going to be the ones that are going to just be able to put their head down and do the work.
Yeah.
Sometimes to their detriment.
Yes.
Which, guilty as well. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we push ourselves past our means because, just like you just said, that's what we are trained to do. Life or death trained.
Right. So that reminds me of a comic I saw once. Because I've been out for a while. I got out in 2007, right?
Okay.
So before you even went in, that's when I left. And
how long did you do?
8 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I remember I've had so many moments trying to explain to people like the way that we think about things, like, and I've gotten untrained at this point, and I'm so grateful for so many healing moments to get me there. But things were really like life or death. And I saw this comic, and it was this guy in a college talking to his professor, and the professor was like, what's the worst thing that can happen if you don't get an A on this test? And he was like, people will die. And he's like, the professor, and the professor's just like, what is wrong with you? And it's like, I was so just like, oh my God, because that's exactly it, as we get in this mind frame. But like I was mentioning my research earlier about the body, right? Is that like, it goes past rational thought. It's not like us literally thinking like, if I don't get an A on this test, then people are going to die. It's like a central nervous system response where we go black and white and assess threat. And the worst case scenario, because that's
the frontal cord just shuts down.
Yeah, we're somatically trained to respond life or death. It's wild. But
yeah. I mean, just sneak up behind somebody and go, you're gonna get you're almost gonna catch an elbow,
right.
From Granny.
Yep.
Or my favorite one, I still get this all the time on the tar. The black tar, and then they have that like big thick black strip where they filled in a crack of some sort. And I
Right.
walk past it and I think it's a snake. My God, like there's not even any snakes in Massachusetts.
Right.
I've never been bitten or attacked by a snake. Why am I afraid of that thing?
Yep. It's our
And it's
natural.
not even a snake.
Right. But it's our natural, like, thousands and thousands of years of evolution. And then the
Way
military just takes
faster than
advantage of
thought.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's well put.
They know what they're doing. It's not an
Yeah.
accident.
Yeah. George Washington knew. He's like, let's start this drilling ceremony, whip them into shape.
Oh my gosh. So what did you do after boot camp?
I went down to Fort Hood, Texas, which is now Fort Cavosa.
All right.
I love that name because it's like Cav. Cav really, really loves themselves. So I do think that Fort Hood was named Fort Cav, essentially, but Fort Cavosa.
Gotcha. And
I
that's
went down to
cavalry, right?
yeah, I went into the 1st Cavalry Division.
Okay.
There's a couple other units there. There's a lot that's come out about, I'm gonna instinctively call it Fort Hood, but there's a lot that's come out about Fort Cavosa in the last 10 years, just about how it's ferocious.
Yes,
And we
I
were
read some of that.
told, do not go over there. Like if you're caught in their barracks, you will be in trouble. Do not go anywhere fucking near those barracks, that half of the thing. They just operate differently. So we never interacted with those units. But and at the time I had no idea. It was really, what are they doing? I don't know. I assumed that they were like smoking pot, my naive
Yeah.
18-year-old Josh mind.
Right.
They weren't. They were doing some pretty terrible things. The gangs down there were terrible. I deployed with this kid, Ned Nesbitt. He was my medic. He was the first guy to put a nasal pharyngeal inside of me. Fucking hurts.
Wow.
Yeah. He was killed by gang violence. Just fucking shot dead just because.
Oh my God.
And it was kind of pitched to us back then that he had done something to deserve it. And it wasn't until fucking years later that I found out that obviously he hadn't done anything. He was just driving down the road.
Yeah.
It was just like a gang initiation, kill somebody to get into our gang.
I'm sorry, man. That's terrible.
Yeah. And he was, best kid ever. We deployed with him and he came back. The kid was on leave from Iraq and his neighbor runs over to his house with a choking baby. And he's like, my baby's dying. And the kid does CPR on the baby and gets the thing out and saves the fucking life. And then he goes right back to Iraq. He was just such a good kid.
Yeah.
So Fort Hood, we did a lot of training. I didn't go out much, to say the least. I pretty much stayed on the base, and we did a lot of training because, as my drill sergeant told me, as soon as I got orders to Fort Hood, you're going to Iraq. Exactly what he said to me, and he was right. I got to Fort Hood in July, and I was in Iraq in December.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And in between that, I did 2 field exercises. So what's that? 6 months. I did 1 month in Fort Irwin, California.
Okay.
And I did 2 weeks down in Texas. And then we did tons of training otherwise. The op tempo of those units was just fucking impossible. It was really silly. Yeah, that really sucked. That was as much as it sucked, I'm more proud of that unit, Deltaco 38 Cav Dragoons, hard as fuck, than I am proud of any other unit that I've ever been a part of.
I think sometimes it's the ones we do the suckiest shit with that we can be the most proud of.
I think that's really what it is, because
Yeah.
I showed up and oh my God, I hated it. I was like, this just is not for me. This is so fucking hard. Like I just like you relate with, like, I just want to go lie down.
Right? Just anywhere.
Please, anywhere. Just
Yeah.
give me like an hour. And it never happened, of course, because, embrace the suck. So, yeah, we went to Fort Irwin, California. That sucked. Yeah. And then I went to Iraq in December. Well, I actually went to Kuwait in December.
Okay.
So, I spent a month in Kuwait, and then I was in Iraq January 1st. And we were in Mosul, Iraq, which we were told by our battalion commander, Colonel Derby, that was the last Taliban stronghold in Iraq. This is before ISIS.
Right.
So the last Taliban stronghold in Iraq. And that we were going to step on anthills. That's exactly what he said to us. He said, he was like, first cav is the tip of the spear in Iraq right now. And 3/8 cav is the tippity tip of the spear. That's what he said. And he died 2 months in.
Oh man.
Yeah, he was really absolutely amazing leader. We lost 4 soldiers. He was a battalion commander. So we lost a battalion commander, 3 former dragoons. So they were in our company. They had just fucking left at one of those field exercises. Roberge, who's from Massachusetts too, and Rex. No. Oh yeah, Roberge and Jex were 2 soldiers that were in Delta Co for our Grey Wolf Challenge, and they all died 2 months in. Car bomb. Nothing could be done. Yeah, and for fucking years, I was absolutely convinced that was my fault. I just knew it. I knew it was our fault. We were told by our leaders, you made this happen.
Are you serious right now?
Yeah. Yeah, we were shown a video from the top, and it was, you guys didn't pull security good enough. If you guys had pulled security better, this wouldn't have happened.
Wow.
And we saw the video. We had to watch the fucking video of the thing from the top. Hindsight 2020. I get it. I get why they had to do that. Because we always need to pull more security. That's what I take out of it.
I hear you. I do. And, in a lot of the research I've done around military and the way that we train our military to do the job they have to do and the shitty things that we do to our military so they can do the shitty job they have to do. I can see the grand machine as well. But can I also just be like, fuck those guys for you? Can I say that just a little bit?
I don't feel that way about them.
Okay. They were doing a job.
They were keeping us safe.
Yeah.
Because if we they were pretty much saying, if you let your fucking guard down for 1 second, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that was the epitome of our training. Let your guard down for 1 second and you'll be killed. Or worse, you'll get a battle buddy killed. Yeah, and that was through therapy that I unpackaged all of that. And I've really come to recently accept that, I had a big question. How the fuck did I keep going? Like it's shameful. I had these shameful thoughts. But I kept going after those terrible things happened. Like, what a terrible person I am. Survivor's guilt in there.
Right.
So I ended up receiving a Purple Heart in April. And I feel like such a phony whenever I hear that. Like, yeah, I caught shrapnel. That happened. My medic picked it out of my hand with a Gerber. That happened. But I got everything.
Right.
Yeah, there's like a huge imposter syndrome with that. I've only come to really recently put that on my bio. Oh, this hurts for me to say, but it's like something in my life that I should have pride about. I should, I don't know, not be ashamed of it. Not, I don't know.
Josh, I just want to say that you can have whatever fucking feelings you want to about it. And that I tell all my clients and students that should is a dirty word.
Yeah.
And that you shouldn't shit all over it. That's right. And here's the thing. The fact that you even gotten to a point where you can put that on your bio is a step, right? And if you decide to take it off and never have it there again, that's fucking okay
I get
too.
to do that. Yeah.
You get to do whatever you want with that.
That's fucking okay to do. Oh my God.
Absolutely. You can feel however
amazing.
you want.
Yeah. I like that.
I was honestly just thinking about this the other day for some reason. So it's so interesting that it came up, but how like we get like rewarded for these things, right? And I'll be honest, when I hear that someone is Bronze Star, Purple Heart, I mean, any of those awards, my first thought is I'm sorry, because you don't get those because you had an awesome time. Like, you just don't. And I think it's nice that the country or somebody wants to, celebrate or give gratitude. I mean, in the best case, I think it's giving gratitude for your service and for being in that position. And I think sometimes we do take it from gratitude to celebration, and maybe that's not appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see some people, or not some people. I've heard some stories about people. I mean, really just stories. I don't think I've ever met anybody that's really come out and just lied about something like that. But I've heard stories about people really grandiosing it. And like, I feel like shame. Like, I feel like I did my job the worst that day.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have fucking got me if I was doing my fucking job and I was behind the cover.
Yeah.
And these grandiose thoughts again come into my head of, well, why didn't I start running? Because I didn't fucking know I was going to get shot at. Right. I mean,
and that's the thing is that, like, and I'm so glad that you've gotten to a place where you're more okay with this stuff and you've been working through it and going to therapy, because those are all of the thoughts that we do have that we often don't share, that we get stuck in and that we spiral in, when really, like, you were just being a fucking human being. And you were doing the best that you could that day. And
I wanted to talk to my buddy.
Yeah. That, there's no more could be expected of you, like, rationally. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having the courage to share that with me.
This is really like my first time. It's been on my bio twice now, and this is the first time I've really spoken about it. So I appreciate you holding the space for that.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Gonna make me I'm grateful for the opportunity to hold the space for it. How about that? Because I know what a big deal it is. And I just appreciate the fact that you trust me with it. So thank you.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So the rest of the deployment was kind of a dumpster fire. We lost, our battalion lost some more good soldiers. Our our company lost a soldier. I had a part to do with that. Just the like cleaning up afterwards. Real bummer. One of the saddest things that happened on the whole deployment, we had a dog.
Oh.
Yeah. I shouldn't have started with that. I should have started with, we had a dog. And we fucking loved the dog. We named it Trackpad because we were tankers.
Mm-hmm.
And we fucking loved the dog. We our families would send it flea collars. We put flea collars on it. We gave that thing baths. That dog hated Iraqis, which was really nice. So if anybody, we were in an Iraqi prison inside of like the prison. So there were just like fucking prisoners everywhere, and it was horrifying. And if that dog saw Iraqis, he'd just start barking. It's like, sweet. So he'd sit on guard next to us, and oh my God. So, like, he wouldn't bite anybody. He was so friendly. And obviously the Iraqi police that were in charge, we were just staying at that prison. We weren't operating it in any manner. It was all Iraqi police operated. And they obviously didn't like that we had a dog, so they fucking killed it. And they just splayed it out for us right in front of us.
My God.
Yeah, it was really, really fucking sad. And that happened right after that soldier Rivera died, like pretty much in the same spot. And I don't know if they even knew about that, but that was like the one good thing that we had. And that dog, it was raised by Marines.
Yeah.
It stayed there on the base the whole time. We fed it. Yeah, we had fucking dog food shipped in.
Because it's those little things, not that a dog is a little thing. I mean, I have my 2 girls, which are my whole world to me, but it's those small things, like just having a dog with you that gives you a little bit of a sense of normalcy in a super fucked up place.
Yeah. And, they don't like dogs there. So they don't like domesticate. The dogs are all rabid. The dogs are all sick. And the dogs are all, really needing to be euthanized. A lot of them.
They're in a lot of pain. Yeah.
They're in a lot of pain. They're freaking sick. Nobody's taking care of them. They don't eat them. So they're just fucking everywhere. We had a veterinarian come out one time and tell us directly, like, you need to kill as many of the dogs as you can humanely as possible. And we're like, what the fuck does that mean?
Oh my God. So it sounds like your time over there was quite a shit show.
It was a shit show. I came home, and, through a lot of it, like that early childhood trauma really taught me how to just check out. I mean, I knew that I could do it as a kid. I knew that I could just it was kind of like daydreaming, but just leave my body. I could just march and just leave my body. I don't even have to think about it. Lovely. And I got really, really good at that in Iraq. And that's kind of just how I operated the whole time. And then I came back. And I think I definitely kept that up. I've kept coming in and out of that, trans-like states. Just totally checked out.
Well, because how long was it from when you came back to when you were able to start therapy?
So I started therapy in Iraq.
Okay.
And this is the fun little ditty. They gave me Ambien. And they told me to take it out at that little shitty fucking prison with all the fucking prisoners. I was like, you're fucked if you think I'm taking that shit that makes me walk around at night at a fucking prison. You are absolutely fucked.
Yeah.
And they still gave it to me. And I'm like, I'm not taking it out there.
Because they are they that disconnected that they just don't understand what you guys are.
I was like, I'm going out.
Experiencing
Like any second, we got to get up, and I can't
Right.
be. I'm going to be driving a 20-ton truck,
Right.
which, by the way, that's how Rivera died, a crash, which often that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where some of
Wild.
the, resentment about the Purple Heart comes in, because he's dead.
Yeah.
His parents don't get a Purple Heart. And he gave his life.
Mm-hmm.
I will never stop quoting our first Sergeant Velez, that on the back of that C-1, whatever it was, he said, Rivera died for freedom. And, fuck, was that hard in 2014 when ISIS took over Mosul, totally dismantled that prison that we were in, fucking made it a like torture sex prison thing. I mean, that really sucked. Then it was really like, if those people didn't die for anything back then what the fuck did they die for now?
Right. Right. I remember when that happened. And just like how many fellow veterans were really struggling.
Likewise in the recent Afghanistan.
Yep.
More recent.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So I was I got out of the Army after that deployment, probably another year. I think I did another year and like 3 months, and then I got out. I had already gotten myself a job as a police officer. I was 21 years old. I mean, I'm just always getting myself into little predicaments. And remember this little like disassociating thing that I'm doing?
Yep.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's not helpful. So I thought it was going to help me. I was like, I'm going to be a better police officer because I'm going to be able to deal with all the trauma. Like, I've dealt with trauma. It just haunts me, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wrong. I mean, like, there is a capacity for trauma. I had a lot of suicides. So go into a lot of suicides where you're really helpless, like the person has died.
Yeah.
You're standing there, and now it's a crime scene thing. So no longer are we trying to do anything to help this person. And all I want to do is just take that person down or help them in some capacity, take them out.
Right.
And you stand there and you don't. And that
it's a different kind of stress. It's a different kind of trauma.
Yeah.
And I've had, so the Coast Guard boot camp is actually modeled after the Marine Corps boot camp.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And when I've explained that to people, they're like, what kind of stress do you guys deal with? And I'm like, so here's the thing. In the Coast Guard, if people are dying, it's because you're not able to do your job.
Yeah.
It's very different than the other services for the most part, and it's not better or worse, but it's a different kind of stress, a different kind of trauma.
There's a lot of warfare in the Coast Guard.
Oh, I'm aware.
Yeah. I've spoken to, going to later I went to a place called Home Base for therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I met some coasties there, and I was really astonished. More combat than a lot of people saw in Iraq. A lot of these coasties are seeing right off our shores.
Right.
I'm from Cape Cod, so again, I watched The Perfect Storm when I was like 12, and that's just imprinted in my brain. Like, those are our heroes. Those are the people that keep our city, our small drinking community with a fishing problem. They're the ones that keep us safe.
Yeah.
So I was a police officer. I think I was a pretty damn good police officer. That started in 2012. But the the trauma just started building up, and it kept building up. A lot of the suicides. So I started drinking. And my doctors started prescribing me benzodiazepines. Woo! Those two things helped me a lot. I was drinking like 18 beers a day at some point.
So, and let's be clear with the helped you a lot. Helped you avoid dealing with
totally
your
avoid
trauma.
everything. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
like this
In
is
a
something we would recommend to folks.
No, it's
Right.
super, super satirical, because
Yeah.
those are the two worst things that you can do if you're struggling. Like I would fight a doctor if they tried to give me benzos. I would fight them.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but I'd get mad. I would legitimately get mad. So those were my two skills as a police officer. I would just get off whenever I got off, and I would just go drink out to oblivion, and then I'd wake up in the morning and I'd take a benzo, which is just alcohol in pill form.
Yeah.
And I operated like that really until I couldn't. I was just reading the writing on the wall. I was drinking and driving a lot. I was really afraid that I was going to hurt somebody. I was really afraid that I was just going to lose my job. And it's like losing your job as a police officer because you get an OUI is a very public thing. And it should be, because these are the people that are making those arrests. And here I am drinking and driving.
Right.
So I resigned. I found an awesome job, I thought, before I resigned, helping veterans. And that was going to be my savior. I was going to help the veterans. And I was a veteran employment representative. And that did not go well. I lasted like a month. It was really, I still had all the stress I had from the Army and all the stress I had from the police department. And I'm like fucking sitting at a table, like nothing's going on. It's fine. And I'm white knuckling it. I am freaking out.
Yeah.
So it was an eye opener to me. And it was really an eye opener that there was something wrong. So that was 2017. I was honest about my alcohol consumption with my docs. I said, hey, I'm drinking 18 beers every day. Like I drink more than that many days, but every day it's 18. And they were like, yeah, you need to go to detox. So that was really my first venue into my first avenue into any type of care whatsoever. And I went from that to a PTSD clinic. No, excuse me. I went from detox. I had to do a little stay in a psych ward, which was really not that bad. And then the VA is nice. I went to rehab in a not so great place in Boston. It was a great care, but the city was left some to be desired. And then I went to a PTSD clinic, and then I was on my own. I was no longer a police officer. I no longer had that job. I was just trying all sorts of things. And it was a couple months after that I found home base, which pretty much the long and the short story of home base is that in 2008, directors from the Red Sox and Mass General Hospital went down to Walter Reed, and they saw the soldiers, the Marines, everybody sitting down there really banged up.
Yeah.
Knowing that they could do better. They're like, we're Mass General Hospital. We're the best in the world. Like, we do TBI stuff. Like, we're really good at it. And the Red Sox pretty much said, hey, we can fund it. We got loads of money. So they funded it. And since then, it's become this amazing program that gives free care to veterans, their family members.
That's awesome.
And that I did a 2-week inpatient there, and that's really where my life really began to change. It was the first time I I was able to talk about Colonel Derby dying. I couldn't even bring those words up before that. It just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really, most of my growth has come after that.
So I think you mentioned it was around that time is when you found Veterans Yoga Project, right?
It was. So it was actually at a yoga studio. I met my wife when I went to Jamaica Plain, VA. I met my wife. She was cute, so I decided to do yoga with her. And that's how we met again. And I followed that up. And then when I went to the PTSD clinic in Western Mass, I saw a VYP sticker, one VYP sticker, little dog tag, VYP. And I had no idea what it meant, but I remembered it. I Googled it when I got back, and I was like, fuck yeah, this is what I need. Like, this is amazing. So I actually went to my first MRT before.
And MRT is mindfulness resilience training. Yeah.
Thank you. Before I went to home base. And I think that was such a huge part of my recovery, because I was able to feel my body. Before
that training
that,
it's so amazing. It's so amazing. Yeah.
It really helped me feel what I was feeling, because like the police, I have a lot of trauma around giving CPR. So like feeling in my chest, often I just, my brain has numbed that part out. It really numbed that whole area out and said, yeah, just don't feel that, because it makes you think of that kid's chest, rising and falling with the bag valve mask. So VYP really does a freaking great job.
Yeah.
So I did my first MRT. Well, my only MRT. And that was really life-changing. And then I heard about the 200 hour, and I was like, I gotta do it. Like Brianna Renner, the CEO of Veterans Yoga Project, she is now. She taught my first MRT. And
well, that's where we met. Well, not in the MRT, but the 200 hour.
At the 200 hour. And it started in the perfect, what was it, March 2020?
Yes. Which is why I couldn't finish. Yeah. I went sideways in a hurry.
It was so crazy.
Yeah.
But we still did a whole bunch of online training.
Yeah.
And I still got to go out to Montana.
Feathered Pipe Ranch, one of my favorite places in the whole world.
I couldn't believe it. It was absolutely amazing.
God, I love that place. Yeah.
And that's when I started teaching yoga. I've started teaching yoga since that. And boy, do I like teaching yoga.
Where are you teaching it at?
Right now, I'm kind of in between places.
Okay.
I'm going to start picking up local community classes. But what I like most about it is I get a lot of people that come in and tell me that they can't notice their breath. They can't calm down. They can't still their mind. Say, all right, well, just try this. Just try this thing. Like, I don't tell them, but I'm like, I'm just going to read a paper. And I read the paper word for word. And then I, look up, and obviously this is a little jokingly, but when I look up, they're totally fucking, it's a different person. Like, their shoulders are down. Yeah. I could just see it. And then when you get back to that person, it's like, what'd you do to me? Like, what was that? Like, they end up treating me like I'm some type of wizard.
Right.
And I'm like, I just read something that I think my friend Adrian probably wrote.
Maybe, probably Dan, but emotional support.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, so I've been teaching since then. Um, I've done a lot with Student Veterans of America also. They're a pretty great organization. And I'm doing a lot with Run to Home Base. So Home Base is the organization, and the Run to Home Base is a fundraiser. We do a 5K. It starts in Fenway, and then you come in through the outfield all the way around, and then you finish on home plate, which is just so fun.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah,
so cool. And you're
it's a very.
fundraising for that, right?
I am fundraising for that,
Okay.
so
Now, if
hopefully we
somebody
can.
wanted to donate to your fundraiser, what's the best way for them to do that?
If you go to the Run to Home Base, you can look me up, Joshua Maloney.
Okay. And you can probably
There,
give me a link.
I will
I'll put
also
it with
give
the
you a
video.
link.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So either way, we'll find it.
Perfect. So, yoga teacher, fundraising, Student Veterans of America. And what are you doing for work now these days, Josh?
So I am a tree climber, actually.
Back
I
to
climb
nature.
trees. Yeah. It's really, I went back to nature. And I find myself doing a lot of mindfulness practices and virtually yoga in the trees. It's an incredibly dangerous job. We're dealing with several ropes and several lines and multiple carabiners, and at any time, if you unclip one and not the other, you could just fall out of the tree and die.
Yeah.
Like that's very possible. But what I find myself doing up there is breathing. As soon as my mind starts, like, because I know I can't check out, I can't do it.
Right.
I know that that's too dangerous. So I'm going to stay in my body and breathe the whole time, feel everything that I feel.
Yeah.
And that's going to make me mindful, which turns on that frontal core, which means I'm thinking more clearly. I'm less likely to untag that thing. And oh, by the way, I'm not huffing and puffing up here. And I love that. I really love the tree work. Climbing trees is just, we are like a breed of people, just a breed of men and women that just do things that makes everybody look up and just say, wow, I would never do that.
Oh my God. Oh, Dan posted your link for us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Dan Ballmer, you know him.
I do.
You do?
DB.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yep. So you also write and you have a blog that's on your website, which I think is awesome. And you mentioned a story about a bald eagle that I would love for you to share if you're open to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was in FTO in the police department, and I had just finished my first unattended death. So somebody died at home. Nothing suspicious happened. It was an old man. Everything looked like they were just an old man and that they died of old age. But nonetheless, I had still been there. I had still done it. So I got signed off on this shitty thing that you have to get signed off on. And after that, we finish. We're in like the roll call room about to leave. I'm talking to my FTO and somebody's like, hey, how'd the new guy do with that, with that dead guy? And he's like, no, he did great. He did fine. No problems. And this guy, Steve Barrett, came up to me and said, small calls like that can build up. Like you got to be careful. Like this one may not bother you, but they build up and they get bigger and they get bigger. He's like, there's lots of things that you can do, mindfulness and breathing. And he's like, I even know this guy that does birding. He goes birding a lot. And I was like, are you fucking serious? Birding? Birds? And I freaking walked down the hallway and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, all the fucking shit I've been through, and you're telling me to go birding. Like, wow. Okay, yeah, thanks for the help. So fast forward until like, I'm sober. Just about 2020, I'm volunteering at the Autobahn. Home base found me this awesome volunteering opportunity, and I followed up on it. And I was volunteering at the Mass Autobahn, really just learning birds, learning what they do. I remember the guy I worked under, Chris Walls. He one time got so excited over peregrine falcons. And I remember being like, yeah, man, but we're like working. Like, can you not? And like, little do I know, those are like some of the most remarkable birds to
They're
watch.
so cool. I
They're
know.
so cool. So then when I saw them, I was like, holy, like, wow, like I really grew in that moment. And it was a couple months later, I saw a robin. A robin was going around and it was picking up grass in the ground. I'm like, huh, why the fuck is it picking up grass? Like, is that eating that?
Yeah.
And the guy said, no. They're, Chris said they're foraging. That's nest building material. They're bringing that back to the nest. I was like, huh, do they ever do that when they're not building a nest? And he said, no, that would be a stupid bird. Like, birds don't do that. Like, smart birds only forage when they have a nest. And if you're a dumb bird, you get eaten. I was like, huh. And I was like, is that true across the board? And he said, yeah, that's true across the board. There's also virtually at the time no eagles on Cape Cod. Very, 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 very few sightings. No nests. The last nest was in 1905. So it had been 115 years since the first nest. And I started seeing eagles in the town that I lived in. And I started following them, kind of. Watching them. Birding. They got me. Taking like, really pixelated photos with my camera and sending it to my buddy saying, hey, is this an eagle? And he just doesn't know because it's way too pixelated. So I keep looking. And then one day I'm driving down the road and a fucking eagle flew right over my car, just like right over it. And I would have, 5 years earlier, I wouldn't have even noticed the eagle. And if I had, I would have just kept going. I wouldn't have cared. But this is like Josh in 2020. Like, I've been through therapy. I've done a lot of stuff. I'm doing yoga. Like, I'm in the MRT right now. Like, the MRYTT right now. I'm learning all this stuff. And I pull into a parking lot and I look out and it's grabbing something on the ground. I don't know what it's grabbing. And then it takes off and I see it clear as day. It's got like a bunch of sticks. It's holding a bunch of sticks and it's going that way. And I knew the town because I was a police officer. I knew the town very well. So I'm thinking, well, there's only one fucking place that this thing could have gone. I think it went to an island. I was like, well, the only way to see is to kayak out there and look. So I ended up getting a kayak and going out there and looking. And as I'm coming around the corner, I'm just like, fuck, I should have Googled what an eagle's nest looks like, because I don't even know. Like, I have no idea what it looks like.
Right.
And I pull around the corner and there's just this mass of sticks.
They're huge, huge.
They're huge.
Yeah.
It's got to be 8 feet tall, like 7 feet across. It's just massive. I was like, that's a fucking eagle's nest. And I saw an eagle perched on it. And I told my buddies, I said, hey, I found an eagle's nest. And they were like, no, you didn't. No, there's no eagle's nest on Cape Cod. Like, I'm pretty fucking sure I found an eagle's nest. And I ended up getting a photo from the other side of the lake of the first chicklet. The thing was like this big. I mean, you could just barely see it, and it's so damn cute. I took probably 500 pictures. And there was just like a couple of them that you could kind of see a little fluff. And one of them, it was perfect. And I could see its little head. And I sent
Oh,
that to Mass Wildlife. And they were like, yeah, that's the first chicklet to be born on Cape Cod in 115 years. And they went out when it was of age and they banded it. It's pretty
yeah.
fantastic.
That is so, I have like goosebumps. That is so
Yeah.
cool.
And then, a year ago today, I
Mhm.
had an eagle in my backyard.
That,
Like,
yeah. Just come, maybe it was
stunning.
the chicklet coming to say hi.
Definitely wasn't. I'd love it if it
Fine.
was, but it had a white tail and a white head, so
Okay.
sorry.
All right.
It's just to get a little birdie on you.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I was never into birds until I did the living in the RV thing and was traveling and like really exploring all of the
Nice.
wildlife.
Yeah.
And when we were in the Everglades, there was an osprey nest.
Oh,
Every day I went to this
yeah.
nest and would just stare up at the little babies and take as many
Yeah.
pictures as I possibly could. And like, yeah. And then I all of a sudden hit the age where I really like birds.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah. I'm
looking at
there.
birds and hearing
Mhm.
birds.
Love it.
It's a thing. They're kind of
Everybody
awesome.
makes fun of me at work. They just always know that I'm like looking up in the sky.
Oh my God.
Just like
Birds.
that.
That's awesome. Well, Josh, we are about at time. So I want to wrap us up, but I just want to take a minute to really, really share my gratitude for your courage and sharing your story with us. And again, for being willing to share it with me, right? That means a lot to me. And I really, really appreciate it. I'm so glad that you've gotten the help that you've needed and that you're continuing to take care of yourself and get help when you need it. As you mentioned, I think as time goes by and we get stronger, our psyche starts to allow more stuff to come forward. And so it's like, oh, good, I'm done. And then you're like, wait, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Right.
But we know how to deal with it.
Exactly. And so
The
you're just
same
building the
process.
skills, building the
Yeah.
tools. And so like, I wish you like so much continued success. And of course, I mean, we're friends. I'm always here if you ever need
Yeah.
anyone to chat with. So to wrap us up, there's one question I always ask everybody at the end. No pressure though. But if there was something you want everyone to know, what would that be?
Everybody has something to offer.
Yeah.
That is like my genuine advice. Even the kid that you might not think has anything to offer has something to offer.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Adrian. This has been really amazing.
It really has. I appreciate you so much. All right. Well, we'll wrap up. So we'll say goodbye to everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for joining us on the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast that live streams every Tuesday night on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you'll join us again. Have a great week.